down, down forward, forward plus punch. In 1987, this is how the kids were throwing fireballs, but today we're talking about a different method of projectile tossing and special move inputs in general. Now normally I like to use these intros to establish the theme of the characters discussed in my videos, but for this situation I think it's impossible to do that without first introducing the character who practically embodies the topic of this video: charge characters. Guile. First name, William, the man of 1,000 humorous name mispronunciations and 2 special moves. Guile is likely the first character you think of when it comes to charge inputs. Put 100 fighting game players in a room and the majority of them will likely say Guile's name if asked to name a charge character. What do charge inputs mean in fighting games though? A simple question with a simple answer. Most special moves are performed with motion inputs, like the one I read off at the beginning of this video. Quarter circle forward is like the quintessential motion, included in basically every fighting game that has them. Charge inputs on the other hand are a bit different. Rather than just performing a single sequence of directions, charge inputs require that you hold in a certain direction, then press the opposite direction plus a button at the same time. Case in point, to perform Guile's Fireball, the sonic boom, you hold back for a few frames, then press forward and punch at the same time. Same rules apply to Flash Kick, but first you hold down and then press up. While it may not sound very complicated, and it really isn't, it's also a pretty large departure from playing a character with regular motion inputs, since you can't perform your special moves at a standstill. Personally speaking, most of the trouble I have with charge inputs and that I've seen other people have comes from down charge moves, mostly because if you fudge the input, you just get a jump, and the timing can be kind of awkward. Although there are plenty of characters in games that have both motions and charge inputs, a character is usually branded a charge input when the majority of their important special moves use charge inputs. Like with Guile. The reason Guile is synonymous with charge characters is not just because of his legacy status, but also because Guile's charge inputs are tied to the core of his design and shape the basis of his gameplay. I mentioned 2 special moves, Sonic Boom and Flash Kick. You better get used to these moves. In fact, make sure they're seared into your brain just as securely as your credit card number and home address, because they're all you have. Even as other World Warriors continue to be granted new special moves in future Street Fighter games, Guile has primarily utilized only these 2 tools since '91. Sometimes he'll get something a little extra, but for the most part, Guile has been the Sonic Boom and Flash Kick man for the better part of 30 years. Obviously, this means these 2 moves are integral to attaining victory with Guile, but because of the nature of his limited special move repertoire and inputs, Guile's 2 specials are designed to be best in class in regards to their attributes. First up, Sonic Boom, which is often in the running for the best projectile in any game that is present. Compared to say Ryu's Hadouken, Sonic Booms tend to have faster startup, faster recovery, and better frame advantage. While every Sonic Boom is -3 in SF6, meaning Guile is safe but at disadvantage, it was highly plus on block in SF4, and used to be plus in SF5, meaning Guile had frame advantage. This was changed in a patch to be 0 on block, meaning both Guile and the opponent are neutral. The lightning fast startup combined with the lax charge time allows Guile to fucking hammer them out thanks to a technique called charge buffering that lets him immediately begin charging another boom as soon as he fires one out, which makes booms a primo zoning tool, as a lot of typical anti-fireball strategies or tools, like jumping, will require good reads to actually hit Guile before he can block again, since they just recover so fast. Altogether, this is a mean-ass fireball. Flash Kick is his uppercut, a gargantuan rising kick that keeps the American skies safe from jump-ins. The sheer range, vertical and horizontal, ensures that no jump remains unpunished. The nature of how Flash Kick's input works also makes it way easier to use on reaction against any kind of airborne move than a Shoryuken is. The EX version is also an invincible reversal. Oh, you thought zoners were supposed to have bad defense to compensate for the difficulties faced getting in on them? Yeah, here's a wake-up EX Flash Kick to the face, nerd. These 2 special moves form the basis of Guile's strategy. 30 years since his debut, Guile's game plan has remained frighteningly consistent and consistently frightening. Throw Sonic Booms. If the opponent tries to jump over them, Flash Kick. Whether it's Street Fighter 2, 4, 5, 6, and even 3 when you randomly mutated it to a blue-haired French dude, you're usually going to see this game plan executed by Guile in some form or fashion. The classic fireball and uppercut game plan isn't something exclusive to Guile, but again, since these are usually his only 2 special moves and they're so strong, it's integral to him. Often, Guile is at his strongest when his ass is planted on the ground, holding down back, becoming a figurative fortress of defense that the opponent must overcome. However, this is all layer 1 stuff. A smart opponent isn't just going to jump into Guile constantly, and while booms do recover very fast, a lucky jump is all it takes for Guile to immediately be put on the back foot. Thus, Guile must also employ use of his normals, with numerous strong pokes like crouch light kick and medium kick allowing him to remain on the offensive without committing to a fireball. He can also use the slower versions of sonic booms to bolster these buttons and brawl at closer ranges. A notable property of Guile is the sheer amount of command normals he has. Mans has more command normals than special moves. He has an overhead to crack defenses and the amazingly stupid looking upside down kick, but his most essential command normals are dedicated to helping Guile reposition. Constantly holding back means you're eventually going to corner yourself, which is not where you want to be even with his strong tools, but if you try to walk forward and gain space, you'll end up losing your charge. Thus, Guile has the bazooka knee, which moves him forward a pretty decent amount. With the input being back plus light kick, it allows Guile to move forward while maintaining his charge. He also has the Sobat, which has a somewhat similar purpose. You have to actually hold forward to do the forward moving version, so you can't move forward and keep a charge with it, but it's still a useful tool for repositioning. Guile's zoning game plan is extremely effective, but do not let his small moveset fool you into thinking he's a one-trick pony. It sounds weird to call someone with 2 special moves versatile, but Guile is a shockingly well-rounded character when it comes down to it. Sure, he's mostly known as a zoner, but a lot of successful Guile players are just as renowned for playing him in a much more aggressive fashion, like Knuckle do. The Sonic Boom, while making an excellent projectile for zoning, can also be used as an approach tool to give him a shield to hide behind while he harasses with his big buttons. To be honest, the idea of Guile being a projectile spammer is one I really hate. It really bothers me to see comments from people who decry Guile players for just throwing fireballs, because, well, A, what else do you want them to do? But B, there's so much to appreciate in how a good Guile player goes about finding a rhythm to set up their fireball game plan, especially considering how projectile-unfriendly later Street Fighter games can be. Call me old-fashioned, but Fireball Wars are still what I'd consider top-tier entertainment. A lot of the fun isn't just what Guile is doing, but how the opponent responds and how Guile works around these responses. The back and forth is what makes him such a cool character, both in theory and in execution. To be honest, one of the coolest things about Guile to me is just how much there is to appreciate in a character who's using such a small amount of specials to run his game. He really is an example of creating something big out of something small, and there's rarely a character where I don't think he's entertaining to watch and even play against, given how other characters interact and respond to what he's trying to do. Despite how consistently he's rocked the same 2 special moves that define him, Capcom in recent years has tried to shake up the foundation and give him some more sauce, like the V system in SF5. I really love how basically all of Guile's V skills and V triggers just let him throw some kind of new projectile, on top of his V Trigger 1 essentially being Capcom acknowledging the existence of the Street Fighter II Rainbow Edition bootleg. In Street Fighter 6 though, Capcom gave the classic Sonic Boom an interesting new spin. Guile still has it along with Flash Kick, and he also has his V Skill 1 and V Trigger 1 from 5 as a special and a super respectively. And they're both motion inputs. Not sure how I feel about that. More importantly, 6 gives Guile access to a new version of Sonic Boom, often referred to as a perfect Sonic Boom. Similar to the Electric Wind Godfist from Tekken, Guile will perform an enhanced version of his fireball if you tap forward and punch together on the same frame within a certain window. The difference can be scouted based on the projectile itself as well as the voice clip Guile says. Here's the regular, and here's the perfect. Perfect booms do more damage and have better advantage on hit. This results in combos that only work with perfect booms. While I can't comment on this change as a player since I suck at throwing perfect booms, so this change makes Guile even harder to play for me, the Guile observer and fan in me will happily admit that I think the combo extensions look cool as hell, and that voice clip is pure ear sugar. Guile's time-tested kit is very strong, but comes with a few complications. Guile's innate strengths exist to compensate for the stringent nature of his special move inputs, but those can cause him plenty of trouble on their own. For example, anti-airing. Now, this is not to say that Guile has bad anti-airs without charge, it's quite the opposite actually. However, his anti-air normals and air throw just don't compare to Flash Kick's range and air invincibility, which can make Guile quite vulnerable if he gets jumped and doesn't have down charge. Similarly, without charge, Guile can struggle to convert stray hits into meaningful damage since his main combo enders all require charge. The need to constantly remain charged for his most pivotal tools means you're constantly weighing the risk-reward of everything you do, be it throwing a fireball, moving forward with walking or command normal, poking, all require careful consideration since Guile does not have the same reliability of performing special moves at a standstill like with motion inputs. It's pretty hard, but also highly rewarding thanks to how efficiently Guile can do things when he has charge. Some may consider him boring, but I'm always on the edge of my seat watching Guile. Pretty impressive for a man with french fry hair. Now there are dozens and dozens of other charge characters, some of whom have specials and sometimes a game plan that's at least partially inspired by Guile, and some who take a different approach to the charge character methodology. So today I thought it would be fun to look at some of those characters, see the parallels and differences that emerge, and how their quirky inputs affect the way they play. Vatista in Under Night. Let me get this out of the way before anything else. This character is pure evil, and so is anyone who plays her. If Guile as the archetypal charge character is a 10, then Vatista takes that shit to a 15. The most gross, oversimplified description I can give of this devil child is that she's just Guile as an anime robot girl. In reality, there are a large amount of differences to contrast the similarities they share. Much like Guile, Vat is not the only character with charge inputs in her game, but she's unique in her reliance solely on charge inputs, with not a single motion in sight outside of her infinite worth, which is universally a half circle for every character. The classic fireball and uppercut that define Guile are here and accounted for with Vatista, as she has a back charge projectile and a down charge flash kick. Pretty standard stuff at first glance, but of course, there's a bit more to it than that. The A version of her fireball has slow travel time, while the B version zooms across the screen and knocks the opponent away, with an additional wall bounce depending on screen position. Vatista can, quite shamelessly, have both projectiles on screen, unlike with other similar conventional grounded fireballs in Under Night, which is definitely not something Guile can do. She also has an air version of this fireball, Cripes. The C version of specials in Uni tend to have stronger properties at the cost of requiring 100 meter. Vatista's C fireball has very lengthy startup and slow travel time, but also bounces up and down in a manner that kinda reminds me of the Kine Orb Super in Garo, and that really upsets me. Her flash kick, well, it's big, it's invincible, and it'll take care of your reversal and anti-air needs. That second one is especially important because unlike a lot of other characters, Vatista does not have a dedicated anti-air normal. Meterless DPs and flash kicks are a little quirky in Uni though. The A version of DPs are usually not fully invincible, only head invincible, so most meaties will still beat them and deliver a fat counter hit. However, ADPs are also special cancelable on block, which means if blocked, you can still remain safe or sometimes even plus if you have meter or vorpal. The B version is fully invincible to everything, but not cancelable. If you commit to a B DP, you better hope the opponent isn't baiting. Vatista is no exception to this rule, so trying to bait a wake-up flash kick can be a dangerous game, as your different options can end up losing to the different versions. You could try to meaty Vatista and get hit by a BDP, or you can delay your offense to bait a BDP and end up blocking an ADP that allows Vat to take her turn back. So with this, we have a strong fireball and an anti-air to deter jumps, the ideal response to any projectile zoning. How do you approach a woman who's holding down back and has a fireball and flash kick charged? Well, believe it or not, that's only the half of it. As I touched on with Guile, a core flaw of charged characters is that when moving forward, they don't have access to their back or down charge moves. Thing is, for Vatista, that's not entirely the case. Holding forward and then tapping back plus a button, and holding up and then tapping down plus a button will allow Vatista access to this very strong full screen laser and a dive kick. The presence of these forward and up charge moves is what makes Vatista really unique to me. With Guile, his designers address the natural drawbacks of his inputs by giving him command normals that let him keep his charge while still moving forward. But with Vatista, moving forward will still charge a special, just a different one. This laser is really strong and probably what's going to cause most of the headaches of fighting Vatista if you're a newer player, speaking from experience there. It's a scary move to deal with in neutral, because while Vatista is doing her best Guile imitation and crouching there menacingly from full screen, you don't know if she's charging a fireball or a laser, which really messes with your approach if you're fighting a lame Vatista. The real kicker is that you don't even really have to choose since they're both stellar keep-away tools and you're more than welcome to use them at the same time. The B laser can also be used as a longer range anti-air thanks to the angle. The dive kick, or drill as a lot of people refer to it, is a tricky move. The B version has a lengthy delay before Vatista starts traveling downwards, and since it grants a combo on hit along with being an airborne move, it's a very strong tool to blow up throw techs. It also hits overhead, ultimately making for a very strong mix-up option. Vatista's last special is technically not a charge move since you don't hold a direction, it's just a negative edge input. Hold down a button and then release it to throw a gem. Up to 3 can be on screen at a time. Now the gems themselves don't do anything on their own, but if Vatista hits them with any of her other moves, the gems will explode. These explosions do assloads of damage, they're insanely plus on block, and they're a potent combo starter. The versatility of these gems is honestly mind-blowing. Since basically her entire kit causes a gem detonation, it makes everything she does way more effective. You get increased range on her zoning, disgusting set play especially when combined with the drill, potential combo conversions off of reversal flash kicks. Give these gems a bunch of papers and you'll probably end up with a paid off mortgage and car notes, they're that good. While not a special move, I also have to mention 2AB. Similar to Guile's Bazooka Knee, this is a command normal meant to help her get around the limitations of her charge inputs. 2AB has Vatista create a barrier with guard point. It's a nifty move as it allows her to use any of her specials once without charging, giving her some added options for when she isn't holding a charge. Much like with Guile, Vatista's kit allows for a very flexible playstyle. As mentioned before, you can play lame as hell with fireballs and laser zoning, but she's more than capable of being aggro and going on the offensive. She has really good buttons with long range and ridiculous amounts of active frames, and when combined with reverse beats, it allows for strings that can be difficult to challenge, giving her good mid-range presence. Her JC is also insanely cracked, which makes it a great approach option, especially out of assaults, and the gems and drills give her disgusting set play potential and mix. Vat is also considered one of the harder characters to play. As strong as she is, that strength requires good execution and mastery of the character's quirks to get the most out of, which can be tricky for less experienced players, on top of already having charge inputs which are stricter by design, and especially with Vatista because of all the different charge directions you have to keep up with. She has varying charge times for all her moves, as some take longer to charge than others, you got a negative edge for the gems which is always awkward, and there's also charge partitioning. Charge partitioning is a very specific piece of tech that's only present in a handful of games for a handful of characters, and often gets mistaken for the aforementioned charge buffering. If you recognize the name, it's likely because of Urien in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, but Vatista and Uni can do it too. Charge partitioning is when you charge a move in multiple intervals, effectively breaking the charge time up into sequences, if that makes sense. It allows for certain setups and zoning patterns that wouldn't normally be possible. Cool character, but again, evil. I will say though, taking a deeper look at her moveset beyond just getting mixed to death by B drill and pelted by lasers, this did give me a greater appreciation for the design of the character, even if fighting her makes you want to put your foot through something expensive. This isn't relevant to the video topic, but I have to mention my favorite Vatista tidbit. So you know what a counter hit is, right? When you hit a character while they're doing an attack. In Uni it causes a giant red pop-up and a voice that tells you a counter hit happened. Before Uni 2, Vatista was immune to counter hits. Like, straight up, she couldn't be counter hit. You could interrupt a poke or land a punish and just nothing. Sure, why not? Even though, let me stress this again, they are very different characters in spite of their similarities, Vatista and Guile to me are both a good representation of the rigidity of how charge inputs function, and it's not something you can really separate from the character. This is something that kept me from being a Guile player personally, even though I love watching him and appreciate his design, but there's another character that also helped me appreciate the workings of actually playing a charge character. Okay, so I have to talk about this character. It's impossible for me to not. Let me preface this segment with this. Parasoul is my favorite fighting game character that I've ever played. I gravitated to her immediately because of her design, and then I got really apprehensive when I learned she was charge, which I know is something that happens with a lot of people in a lot of different games. In spite of this, I thugged it out and found that not only was I enjoying her in spite of being a charge character, but I was sort of having fun because of it. Excuse me if this segment is a little more self-indulgent than how I normally operate, because fuck, I just can't help myself. Like with the characters I've talked about thus far, the designation of being a charge character comes primarily from the fact that all but one of her specials are charge, and the way she's designed is very particular in this regard. You're probably sensing the pattern by this point, but Parasoul is a highly versatile character. She can be played in multiple different ways, which allows her to excel at adapting to different paces and playstyles, as well as team positions. She brings the classic fireball and uppercut combo to the table with a twist related to a unique mechanic that I absolutely love. Parasoul's only motion special is Napalm Toss, which tosses these mines known as tears that can be detonated by hitting them with various normals and specials. These tears are what set Parasoul apart, especially in regards to her two main charge moves, and they give her amazing control of the screen. Her projectile, Napalm Shot, has a fast and slow variant, along with a version that ricochets off the ground and travels upward diagonally. Combined with a good zoning assist, Parasoul's keep away is actually quite capable, especially since Napalm Shots can simultaneously create and detonate the tears, which expands the range of the move. Her flash kick equivalent is also quite a standout move. All three button strengths are classed and named as individual specials. Light does not have a hurt box, and its main purpose is to detonate every tier on screen. Medium is a low hitting attack that keeps the opponent grounded on hit, making it great for super cancels and resets, and Heavy is a real reversal. Big ass hitbox, full invul, bananas minus on block, so if the opponent blocks it, you die unless you cancel into super. Guile would be proud. Just watch out for the dead zone behind Parasoul, as it renders the move much weaker against forward jumps and air dashes. Skullgirls' system mechanics make it so that combos are very particular. If your combo goes on for too long and doesn't follow certain rules in regards to what normals you use in a chain and how many times they're used, among other factors, the character being comboed gains the ability to burst out of it. These systems promote constant combo resets and mix-ups on offense, and Parasoul has lots of ways to schmix the opponent. 6 LP and 4 HK are both overheads, with the former providing a grounded combo on hit and the latter ground bouncing. She has a standing low with 6 MK. I never found this button particularly helpful, but it is a standing low, and all standing lows are the devil's work. She also has J4LK, which can cross up, JMK and J2MK, which is basically the Chun-Li stomps, can both hit as an overhead when done rising from a jump. She has huge grab range on her air throw, and she gets a combo off of it, and that's without even mentioning potential tier detonation resets. There's so many cool setups this character can perform. This playstyle is an absolute barrel of fun, but honestly, looking back, something I find kind of funny, and probably the reason I enjoyed this character so much, was because I wasn't really playing her like how I envisioned a charge character. My mindset at the time was that when I thought of a charge character, I thought of the classic hold down back fireball flash kick game plan that the last two characters I discussed, Guile and Vatista, embody. But with Parasoul, the way I played her at least, and the way I've commonly seen her played when you're mixing people into other dimensions and doing cool setups, it helped me break away from the mindset that all charge characters are just down back zoners, which made me more comfortable playing her the way I was. You can kind of play that game with Parasoul, but like I said, her projectile zoning is solid, but with the fast-paced nature of Skullgirls, I found Rushdown with Parasoul to be way more fun. Still, she can play for both teams. I think the tier detonations are a big part of why, as they give her a method of controlling space that isn't just throwing out projectiles, so they're highly malleable to any kind of game plan. Skullgirls being a team game is a factor too, since you can give her different assists to fit different niches. Of course, this isn't to downplay the presence of charge inputs in her kit. They're still important for your neutral, your defense, and your combo routes, and one of the reasons she was such a satisfying character to learn for me was that playing Parasoul forced me to get better at doing charge inputs. Hell, I didn't even mention her most unique special move, the Egret specials. These are 3 different back charge special moves. Light Kick is the Egret Call, which is kinda like a Roman cancel that lets you cancel the recovery of a normal or her level 3 super, necessary for certain combos and setups. Medium Kick is the Egret Dive, which absorbs projectiles, making it the only way to fight Peacock without wanting to punch a hole through your monitor, and Heavy is a full screen hit grab with fantastic corner carry. These 3 moves contribute to that versatility I praised, giving her even stronger screen presence. The reason Parasoul is so fun, in my opinion, is because of how comprehensive her kit is. Everything feels like it suits a purpose. Every button, every special, all the command normals, and once it starts coming together, you feel like a god and an absolute bastard with the kind of dirt you can pull off. Also, Jump Heavy Punch. This is like if you took dopamine and turned it into a fighting game button. Her movement is a lot more limited than other characters. She doesn't have an air dash and she can't run, but her dashes, both backward and forward, cover a large area, and JMK lets her float if you hold the button down, which is so cool. Also, I have to mention, all of her supers are motions, which is a good thing for me, so I'm not complaining. Parasoul is the greatest advocate of learning charge characters to me if you like the design, because even though I still suck at charge inputs, it was still a lot of fun to learn her and try to patch that flaw of mine up, and I felt insanely fulfilled playing her. I could gush for way longer about basically every aspect of Parasoul, but then this video would be way too long, so let's move on. Next on the list is a character from a game I hold ceaseless admiration for and also kinda struggle to get into. I can expel a ton of praise for Blazblue Centralfiction. This is a genuinely fun game to talk about and watch because every character just feels so unique, and I love playing it too, even if there are some things that make it harder for me to get into than other anime games. Anyway, let's talk about the big sword guy. Specifically the big sword guy who's a charge character. Kagura is the resident charge character of the cast and definitely a unique approach to designing a character with this style of inputs. Looking at his special moves first, he only has 3 of them, part of the deal I guess. His back charge is quite unique because it's not really a traditional fireball like you'd expect. Instead, we have this projectile that's more of an okizeme and approach tool. It starts moving slowly but picks up speed as it travels. There's a huge disparity in the startup of the 2 versions. A fireball starts up in 18 frames and the B fireball starts up in 40 frames. However, it also has much better advantage on block to make up for it. What makes it particularly unique is that it actually gains more hits the farther it travels, enhancing the damage and allowing it to destroy other projectiles. Yeah. He has a flash kick, and from what I've experienced watching and fighting against Kagura, this comes out on wake up or in any gaps in strings every time. Every time. Only the C version is invincible while the B version is only head invul, but the B version is air unblockable, which makes it better as an anti-air. You can also follow it up with this final special, which is an upcharge move kinda like Vatista's drill, referred to as Katamos by the community after the thing he shouts when performing it. Outside of being a follow-up to his flash kick, it hits overhead, so it's a frightening mix-up tool. Since he can do it out of a jump, it practically becomes an instant overhead, one that's a little tricky to convert off of, but still quite strong. Even though he has a fireball and can play the fireball flash kick game plan to an extent, it's not really his MO, especially given how sluggish his longer range normals are. His frame data can make playing neutral pretty awkward for him, and his fireball is more suited to being used to help him approach and set up Oki, so his win conditions center more around his extremely strong and varied mix-up game. But how can that be possible when he only has 3 special moves and they're not really suited to mix-ups other than Katamos to an extent? The devs of BBCF addressed this by making Kagura a stance character, but more importantly, by making him a stance character whose stance is only accessed with 1 button. Kagura's stance is tied to Blazblue's unique mechanic, Drive. The D button allows every character to access some form of unique, character-defining gimmick. For Kagura, 5D, 2D, and 6D will have him enter one of 3 stances on the ground or in the air, and each stance has 3 different follow-ups. 5D gives him access to a punch with guard point, an anti-air swing with huge range, and a 7-frame command grab, which is a terrifying mix-up tool that leads to a combo on hit. 2D has an overhead and a low, as well as a 2-hitting sword slam that hits low on the second hit that makes for a good pressure tool. And finally, with the 6D stance, you gain strike and projectile invul follow-ups as well as a cross-up. With so many different options to call out the opponents or just mix their shit, he's a scary fellow to go up against once he's in your grill, especially since he does huge damage off many of these mix-ups. As far as characters that divert from the charge zoner archetype, I think Kagura is definitely one of the coolest examples. Obviously there's a defensive inclination to the way charge characters work because they're naturally going to be holding back or down back to use their specials, so making Kagura a stance character, and one who only uses 1 button to access his stances, is a really cool concept that allows him to be played very offensively and makes for an entertaining character in action too. He also has some very unique inputs that involve charging and emotions for his supers. One final thing I have to bring up because it's hilarious is that Blazblue Centralfiction has a simple inputs mode called Stylish. In this mode you have a separate special move button that allows you to perform special moves without doing those pesky inputs. Now Street Fighter 6 also has an easier inputs mode, Modern Controls, and in this mode, charge moves, while still requiring back charge, don't require you to tap the opposite direction like normal. So you'd expect Stylish to work the same in BBCF with charge inputs, right? Nope. Stylish Kagura straight up has 1 button fireballs and flash kicks. Hilarious. There is a damage penalty of 20% though. Arxis is such an unserious company, man. Speaking on charge characters that reflect a more offensive-based playstyle, I gotta talk about Polnareff and Heritage for the Future. His hair may elicit memories of Guile, but these two definitely do not share a similar game plan. Instead of zoning you with fireballs, Polnareff is all about getting in your face and smothering you with unseeable mix-ups. There's no sonic booms or flash kicks to be found, unless you want to call standoff ray dart a projectile. A projectile with a hurt box. Sure. Anyway, Ray Dart is a great combo extender and a poke, but the main star of JP's kit is Shooting Star, his down charge special. Shooting Star sends his stand Silver Chariot flying at the wall. You can hold down the button to keep him there, but eventually Chariot will dive down towards the opponent. This is one of the most broken specials in the game and forms the foundation of Polnareff's offense. This is a full screen overhead that tracks the opponent and allows Polnareff to move and attack at the same time Chariot is descending. Polnareff has a low hitting 2A which is extremely fast, so this essentially allows him to run unreactable high-low mix from anywhere on screen. It doesn't do Pol much good to just hold down back and charge Shooting Star all game while standing or crouching still, but thanks to Polnareff's crouching buttons being so good and JoJo's having buttons able to be performed during dashes, he's able to keep on the move while charging Shooting Star and keep his offense relentless. Canceling buttons on block or whiff is a good way to get it out there, so keep that in mind. Despite Polnareff's charge moves being entirely focused on offense and mix-ups, he does maintain a defensive playstyle, but here it's focused around his stand-on mode. Quick summary, god I've explained this like 5,000 times in the past, but in Heritage for the Future, certain characters can switch between a stand-off mode where they fight alone and a stand-on mode where they fight alongside their stand. Stand-off is where Polnareff plays the aggressor, but in stand-on, Polnareff gains the ability to slow things down. The main thing is that Shooting Star can be used in both stand-on and stand-off, but it's much worse in stand-on because Polnareff and Chariot attack at the same time, eliminating the mix-ups in favor of a move that basically does nothing. However, in return, Standoff gives Polnareff some of the best buttons in the game with absolutely unreal disjoints and insane range, turning him from a mix machine into a defensive wall. I do think Shooting Star being charged was probably an attempt at balancing it, even though it failed miserably, but I also have this theory that Capcom made Polnareff a charge character solely because he inspired Guile's design. I've yet to see anything disproving this. On the subject of more aggressive charge characters, I also have to mention Mitsuru from Persona 4 Arena. It's not just because they both use rapiers, I promise. Like Polnareff, she's pretty far removed from being a charge zoner. She does have projectiles, but they aren't what I'd call fireballs, and they aren't comparable to a sonic boom. Her main non-projectile charge move is a rapier lunge with great range and a name that reminds me of how much it sucks to be monolingual. Her reversal is just B plus D instead of a down charge, but that's a universal thing amongst the cast of P4AU. She's more of a mid-range monster with her buttons, using them to check people's approaches or poke and keep them out. 5B in particular is important as she can delay the startup by holding the button, allowing her time to get her charge in neutral without just standing or crouching still. Her screen control with these buttons is excellent, and her damage is really good when she's got a hit, especially when she's got meter to spend. I know this segment was super short, but I have plans to look at both these characters in future videos on their own. Lord knows they both need it. To end this video off, I want to talk about maybe the most interesting character on the list in my opinion. Lovely viewers, let me introduce you to Fantasy Strike. The general theme of this video has been charge characters and how they're designed around the limitations and benefits of having charge inputs. Be they a fireball zoner or a rushdown monster, every character in this video has had their game plan shaped by the way their inputs work. So here, we have Fantasy Strike. If you're not familiar with this game, then allow me to introduce it to you. This is a fighting game whose development was led by David Sirlin, the man behind Super Turbo HD Remix. The point of Fantasy Strike is to offer a simplified fighting game experience, and part of that experience is that motion inputs are gone. There's not a single one to be found here. Simplifying inputs is something David Sirlin likes to do in his games. Back in Super Turbo HD Remix, one of the changes made to some characters was easier inputs for special moves. Zangief was given the ability to do SPD with the half circle input instead of the standard 360, and they made the same change to T-Hawk too. And this was not a change every ST player was happy with, but Fantasy Strike is an original game designed around not having any motion inputs. Now in my opinion, I think simple input games hold themselves back tremendously in terms of potential fun character designs, but in spite of this, Fantasy Strike still manages to create a character that could honestly only come from David Sirlin. That's a compliment, by the way. This is Geiger, and he is Fantasy Strike's resident charge character. I know what you're thinking. how the fuck can you have a charge character in a game without charge inputs? Well, I'll happily answer that. Geiger is obviously meant to be the Guile function of this game. He has a sonic boom, a flash kick, moonsault kick from Nash, which is actually really cool, and this really sick super where he stops time. It's not like a Dio or Izanami time stop, he can't move freely, but it just looks really cool. Like with Guile, these special moves are by nature extremely strong. His sonic boom has faster startup and recovery compared to other projectiles, and his flash kick is fast, large, and doesn't cost HP, unlike Jaina, who also has a meterless reversal but needs to sacrifice her vitality to do it. Flash gear. Fairly standard as far as Guile functions go, although Fantasy Strike doesn't have crouching, so Geiger zoning just kinda looks weird in comparison. Geiger does not have inputs for these moves, they're done with a single button just like every other character. The charge character label falls to him because of his unique gimmick, the gear meter. This is essentially a substitute to charge inputs. Geiger is only able to use his specials when the gear meter is full, and one use of a special will deplete the gauge. It fills up fast though, so you're never spending much time without it. The catch is that the gear meter will completely empty itself if Geiger moves forward. If his toes move even an inch forward, he will lose access to all of his special moves, except for phase out. As a substitute for charge inputs, it's meant to simulate similar gameplay. You stand back throwing fireballs and anti-airing jumps. Move forward and that game plan dissolves, forcing Geiger to either brawl at close range or find a way to retreat and fill his meter again. Much like Guile, he also has moves meant to help him move forward while maintaining charge, or gear meter. 4A, that's A for attack because there's only one normal attack button in this game, is a step kick that allows Geiger to gain ground while keeping the gear meter full. He also has a really good command normal in 6A, and while using it does mean giving up gear meter, it is a fantastic poke that allows him to regain his ground. Now, I'll admit, I'm not huge on games without motion inputs, but I think this is a really cool idea. It's ambitious as hell, but in terms of creating a charge zoner in a game with no charging, I like it. The only issue I have is that Geiger's meter refills when he's standing still as well, which I guess is meant to be like how Guile can down back to charge a boom and flash kick at the same time, but it just looks a little awkward. It's also a shame that Fantasy Strike has short combos, the boom loops, man, one of the coolest things about Guile. And that's all. I'm well aware that there are way more charge characters I could have talked about. Ash Crimson from KOF is a charge zoner that turns into a nuker when you have the right amount of meter. Venom in Guilty Gear has a really cool and unique mechanic with pool balls. Axel from the same series is a zoner that uses both charge inputs and has long limbs like Dhalsim. Jean from Karnov, Charlotta from Granblue, there's so many of them, but these were just the ones that I was the most familiar with and that I thought stood out the most. To be honest, it kinda shocked me the sheer extent that charge inputs are beloved by the FGC. I had this video planned for a long time, but the reason I decided to do it now was after seeing the outcry over the fact that Kain, a charge character from Garo Mark of the Wolves, had most of his charge inputs turned into regular motions in the follow-up City of the Wolves. Similar thing happened with M. Bison in Street Fighter 6 having his scissors kick turned into a motion input after 30 years of being a charge move. It's honestly a bummer because focusing on charge inputs can really change the way a character is designed and add new depths to their moveset and game plan, so seeing them slowly get phased out just to make every character use motions with maybe one charge move is a little disappointing. To end this video off, I'd like to say to anyone who's ever passed on a character whose design or gameplay they liked because of the fact that they're a charge character, go back and learn them, damn it! Sucking at charge inputs is annoying, but I think overcoming that hurdle is massively satisfying, and it'll broaden your horizons. You never know, you might end up with a charge character as your favorite FG character of all time, like I did. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great night, and take care. Hey everyone, this is the part of the video where I thank all my beautiful, amazing channel members. I just want to say first up, a lot of the footage in this video is from TNS and also CEO Gaming. Thank you to Mr. Jabali for giving me the permission to use it. Looking forward to CEO. Got my hotel already, got my registration. Still waiting on booking a flight though. But anyway, thank you to Old Man Han, Kemi the Killer, Jazba, Mortis, Arg Seals, Wormy, Terry Hints, Perfect Orange, Pet Shop from Fortnite, Happy the Hap Hap, HPHK, Gundog92, Isaac the Collector, Gerald Say, Loop Zoopler, Loose, Kira the Stowaway, Raymond ZX200, Nick Toyo, Sonic Frontiers is a good game, and Basewire. thank you all so much for the support. It really does mean so much to me, and I'm eternally grateful. I can't even say it. Sorry that this video took so long. It's just mostly a result of me being pretty busy throughout the month, and also sick for most of it. And sorry if this video was a little fast and loose, kind of a little weird compared to some other videos I've done. I kind of wasn't sure what I wanted this video to be, between, you know, being a video about charge characters or just Guile. Kind of ended up being both. Not sure how much people will enjoy the sort of combination of concepts, but I think I'm pretty happy with how it turned out overall. Anyway, thank you all for watching. As usual, thank you for all the support. You know, I love you all. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a great night. Take care.